So in this project, what I wanted to do is take this gestural language or the mime language that is used and then sort of transpose those into contemporary context, because the gestures used in Bharatanatyam depict Hindu mythological stories which are not really relevant to today, or to me in that sense. I mean, yes, I had an upbringing in Hindu mythology, but it doesn't really relate to me anymore. It's like, well, how can I use this gestural language to mean something to me now about what's happening in the world now? So that's really what I'm sort of investigating, and how that can be used, and rather than sort of putting gesture in for the sake of a gesture, absolutely holding the integrity. So if I am to do, I went to the house and saw you, shocked, and I want to hold the integrity within the gesture. I mean, through the project, the difficulty has been in exploring this element is the nuances, or the Indian dance nuances. So if I was to say, you, come here, how are you, where have you been? It's very subtle, the little shake of the head, or the cocking forward of the head, which doesn't really exist in this culture, or the culture I'm brought up in. And even though that's embedded in me, is how do you now extract that, and without those nuances, you can still say, how are you, where have you been, and I can still hold it and they still have integrity. So that's really what I'm exploring, how to use that within particular scenes and settings. The idea for this research project initially stemmed about a year and a half ago, when I split up with my girlfriend at the time. And sort of after leaving her, you sort of look back at the relationship and you reflect on the moments that you spent together, but you sort of let go of that in order to move forward. So I had this sort of notion that that happens to everyone. You let go and you move forward, and it doesn't happen just in relationships. I mean, it can happen in everyday situations. So someone can die, there's a sense of loss, but you have to let go in order to move forward. Or even if you're moving home, or moving out of your parents' house when you're going off to university. So all these things involve a sense of letting go and moving forward. And also, I could leave this room and there are certain things I will hold on to because they're valuable to me, but the rest I will let go of, and I will move forward with things that I want to hold on to. So using that idea, I sort of wanted to work around the issues of refugee and asylum seekers, and that was the actual research that I was going to carry out. And in the first week of the research, the whole lot of information involved in refugees and asylum seekers just absolutely piled on top of me. I started reading the Geneva Convention, went and saw some asylum seekers, went and found out about destitute asylum seekers, and the topic was so vast. I just thought, I'm entering an absolute area that I really do not know enough background information about to even start to explore. So I decided that maybe I need to let that part go and just focus on the letting go and moving forward. And in exploring that, through this research project, what stemmed, or what interested me when we were working, was how cultures come together in society, really. So, I mean, in London itself, there are pockets of communities. So you go to the East End of London, you have this sort of Bangladeshi community, or you can go to the northwest of London, and there's this Gujarati community, or you go to Peckham, there's a Jamaican community, and it's really, really scattered. So that's really interesting. And I suppose what really interested me is when cultures meet, what is lost and then what is gained, and that is really what I've been researching in the past 3 weeks, and how that reflects our society. When I embarked on this research project, I initially was, or my role was a researcher, trying to explore an idea, how to use or transpose the gestural language of Bharatanatyam into a contemporary context. And throughout the research period, it almost feels like I can't really define any particular role that I would carry out. I mean, I started off as a researcher and then I became a choreographer, and then at certain moments I was directing, but I'm also performing in it. So I'm a dancer and an actor with the other two performers, and also overseeing the whole project. So in terms of a role, I can't really bracket it. It seems like my mind was sort of jumping to and fro, still researching, still directing, still choreographing, still performing, which for me actually excites me, because it just allows me to feel all the different elements within the research period. But ideally, you know, when I want to take this piece forward, I suppose I'll be playing more of a choreographer director role within the work, or that's where I'd like to head. Well, the outcome of this particular research project has been quite an interesting result, really. I invited two artists, Kate Zamira Mummery, who is a contemporary dancer, and Wela Mbusi, who is a trained actor. And really, because I was sort of stepping on the line of dance, theatre, or I'm not quite certain where the gestural language would take me, if it would take me into the dance genre or theatre genre, if you will. I mean, I don't want to differentiate, but there is a different way of working between the two. And through the research, I have found that actually the style of work that's being created is more suited to a dancer than it is to an actor, because I mean, in certain sections that we were developing, we would create a natural scene or scenario, and then out of that these sections of pure dance will evolve based on the emotional moment in the naturalistic scene. But I found Wela unable to really push himself to the physical extreme I needed to go. Whereas with Kate, she was able to work with the dance elements, but coming over to the acting side seemed a little bit more difficult. However, that journey seemed to be easier, I think, simply because I have made that transition myself. I was able to give the tools necessary to change, whereas Wela, being a trained actor, it was much more difficult to give a dance training to him. So, I mean, in terms of the outcome, I think I realised from this research project that I do need to work with dancers to create this the complete work if I want to go forward with it. So yeah, I think there are a few nuggets that are worth keeping from the research. I mean, we did identify, I suppose, 3 or 4 key moments, but even out of those 3 or 4 key moments, I only think 1 or 2 are even worth keeping. But there's still valid building blocks at which we can sort of, you bounce off that building block onto the next one, so that will, you know, you won't get to the next step unless you're on that step. So that's another outcome, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next from this stage. And the other outcome, which was absolutely invaluable in this project, was Sean Myatt, the puppeteer, who came in and did a couple of workshops with us. And I mean, working with materials and objects, we sort of had sessions where we sat and we looked at objects and, you know, was thinking about how it moves and, you know, what would it create. And then we sort of worked with opposing bits of text, so, you know, packing to stay, or what is it, my body is alien to me. So working with those kind of phrases and then developing material just using objects with no text, anything else, just purely objects, was brilliant. I mean, one of the sections I loved was a paper section which came from just exploring the idea of letting go, and it sort of it came out of that. So those were invaluable, and I think those have created actually a couple of the nuggets that I actually think are worth developing in the future. So I'm pleased with the outcome, but it'd be lovely to have more time to really delve in and tackle some more things. I mean, also the gestural language and the exploration of that, again, requires a lot of time. You're working with non-Bharatanatyam trained bodies, so just holding a shape is not enough, because it's just a shape. But to have an absolute meaning behind any of the gestures, it's years of training. So it's finding the way in which to communicate that in the most efficient way.